Hello, hello.
Okay, Thompson, you're on your own. Really? Thank you.
We very much appreciate your joining us, gentlemen. As you heard on the last panel, we will have 5-minute opening statements to leave us the maximum amount of time for questioning, and I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. John DeCamp, who is sitting with Mr. Crockman and Mr. Fletcher as counsel. You're welcome, sir. We'll begin with the listing in the witness list as circulated with Mr. John Crockman from Knoxon, Montana. Mr. Crockman, the floor is yours.
Greetings from Montana. It is sad that this opportunity to address the Senate has arisen out of the Oklahoma tragedy. We wholeheartedly denounce the deplorable act of violence. We have and will continue to assist in any manner to apprehend all persons that may have planned and or carried out that dastardly deed at whatever level they may hide. At the present time, we view the militia movement as a giant neighborhood watch. The movement is made up of a cross-section of Americans from all walks of life with a singular mandate which is public and overt: the return to the Constitution of the United States and 2-year oath to defend that Constitution. The Declaration of Independence gives excellent insight as to why people feel the need to group together and participate in militia patriot organizations. This document speaks for itself once again, as it did over 200 years ago, when flagrant injustice continues out of control by oppressive public servants. We request that this document be entered into the permanent record as a partial support document to our statements. The following are just a few examples as to why Americans are becoming more and more involved in militia patriot organizations. The high office of the presidency has been turned into a position of dictatorial oppression through the abusive use of executive orders and directives, thus leaving Congress stripped of its authority. When the president overrules Congress by executive order, representative government fails. When government defines human beings as a biological resource under the United Nations Ecosystem Management Program, maintaining that state and local laws are barriers to the goals of federal government. When the average citizen must work for half of each year just to pay their taxes, while billions of our tax dollars are forcibly sent to bail out the banking elite. While our fellow Americans are homeless, starving, and without jobs, Congress wonders why the constituents get upset. When government allows our military to be ordered and controlled by foreigners under presidential order, allowing foreign armies to train on our soil, allowing our military to label caring patriots as the enemy, then turns their tanks loose on U.S. citizens to murder and destroy, or directs a sniper to shoot a mother in the face while holding her infant in her arms, you bet your constituents get upset. When government refuses to hold hearings on government-sanctioned abuses and whitewashes those hearings that are held, when government tampers with or destroys evidence needed to solve crime and now considers the very idea of infringing upon the people's right of freedom of speech, assembly, and the right to redress after having destroyed the 2nd and 4th articles, how can senators and representatives ever question the loyalty of concerned Americans without first cleaning their own house? Quote, the law perverted and the police powers of the state perverted along with it. The law not only turns from its proper purpose, but made to follow a totally contrary purpose. The law becomes the weapon of every kind of greed. Instead of checking crime, the law itself becomes guilty of the evils it's supposed to pursue. unquote. Frenchman Frederick Bastiat, 1884. We the people have about had all we can stand of the twisted, slanted, biased media of America, who take their signals from a few private, covert, special interest groups bent on destroying what's left of the American way. We respectfully request that you rely upon your own investigation, steering clear of the media and their rumor gossip mills of disinformation. Although most everyone in the movement has assembled under the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of peaceably assemble, we have not forgotten what our founding fathers have stated about the Second. Former President James Madison, a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the best and most natural defense of a free country. Former Vice President Elginbridge Gary. I ask, what is the purpose of the militia? To offset the need of large standing armies, the bane of liberty. Why would he call the armed forces the bane of liberty? Who is the Pentagon waging activities against active campaigns to win over the populace, and why? Why does Military Civil Affairs Manual 4110 seem to be so applicable in America today? Paraphrasing, steps necessary for the overthrow of a nation. May God be with America as he watches over the shoulders of you who write her laws. A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. America has nothing to fear from patriots maintaining vigilance. She should, however, fear those that would outlaw vigilance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crockett. Now, Mr. Fletcher.
Well, I'm going to just stand for in the interest of time so that we can get into some other more pressing concerns. I'm not going to give any type of an introductory comment at this point in time, other than to point out that what we must look at is the overriding important point being what is the concern of the actually several million American citizens that are involved with patriot groups. And those concerns basically is an out-of-control government, an overly oppressive government, a government that utilizes a secret shadow means by which most of you or some of you that are not even involved with it have no idea what money is being spent for in our black covert funding. So we'll kind of get into that. I want to skip and pass my time on.
Well, Mr. Fletcher, perhaps your time might be used to specify some of the comments which you made this morning on Good Morning America, ABC, if you would, about a second bomb being planted at Oklahoma City, or evidence of a second assailant, second conspiracy?
Yes. Typically, what I might do, again, is a matter of, so we can cover enough things that will also be important. This is a report that's been put together by a couple of people. One of them is an former FBI agent, formerly with a $22 million budget and 700 people working under him. Had been with the FBI for some probably 25 years. His determination, along with many experts, is that there was a minimum of at least one, if not two more explosions simultaneously within the building. Additionally, we have information that John Doe number 2 has been located. He has a name, we know who he is, where he is, and that he is also of a foreign descent. And for some reason, the FBI is steering away from this gentleman. That needs to be looked into more definitively, and I would offer this report, which I will leave with you folks. This also covers the type of bomb that most likely was utilized inside the building. The idea that it was a huge fertilizer bomb, there was no residue to speak of, no caustic fumes, which automatically would come from that bomb if it was singularly placed. Additionally, the idea, according to experts, is the idea of that bomb directively destroying the building as it did is absolute baloney. So I'll just leave this, and then we can get into, again, the answers and questions relative to other events of government corruption and being out of control. I do want to leave as much time as we can on that, which includes the militarization of local police offices all over the United States, including the supplying of armored personnel vehicles all over America to smaller police stations, which is ridiculous. I'd like to pass my time on.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Adams.
I'd like to thank the body here today for inviting us. I think this is a very important time in history that this body has brought the militia to speak here today. I think it's important that we have the opportunity to talk to one another, to air our views, and to get to know one another. And I hope that the individual states of the militias across the country will also do the same thing with the leaders in their states. As I sat here this morning and heard the testimony, and I certainly cannot address each piece individually, the things that I heard, at least a dozen different charges from across the nation of lawlessness, are certainly disturbing not only to me but to most militia members. And we are certainly totally against violence. What I do want people to understand through these hearings today is what is the militia today and who are the people that are involved in the militia. I think what we heard today so far in testimony have been very, very, very extreme elements, and in most cases were individuals that were not directly associated with what we would call the mainstream militia movement today. And that's what I would like to address, is who that mainstream militia is. It is a cross-section of Americans, of every type of occupation that there is, everything from attorneys to doctors, to mechanics, to nurses, to businessmen of all types. They are everyday Americans that are very, very concerned with what's going on in their country. And we applaud that. We are excited that once again in this nation, people are getting involved in their government. We are setting up programs right now to help people start registering to vote and going to the polls and getting involved in the legislation, in the process that we all love. The militias, as many times has been reported in the media, that they hate their government. This is not so. We think that our government, that this body is the finest form of government in the world, and it could not be better. Are there problems in government? Certainly there's problems. You can hardly find an American that doesn't have something to complain about. Your body itself, whether you're Republican or Democrat, is complaining about the other side. That's America. That's good and that's healthy. And we believe in the freedom of speech. We do not believe in hatred. We do not believe in racism. And if you'll look over very, very carefully of all of the things that you've heard me say in the media and some of the others that have said in the media, we have said nothing about hate. We have said nothing about racism. We have not been anti-Semitic. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't fringe elements out there, and I'm not saying that over the last 14 months, when this organization, this group that is growing across the country, has started getting public attention because we have been out in the open, because we have been very public. We have gotten a lot of media. I'm not going to say that others aren't going to try to attach themselves to our coattails and take that ride and try to get their public attention too. But it is wrong. If they use hate, if they use violence, if they do not abide the law, we will be the first to expose them. We will be the first, if they are breaking the law, to turn them over to the law enforcement agencies. In my state, if you'll check the record, you'll find that we have stood behind our law enforcement fully. We have also initiated legislation in our state to support and empower our sheriffs and other law officials. We are law-abiding, God-fearing Americans. And we ask that this Congress will recognize that we represent literally millions of people in this country that are once again getting involved. And the one thing that they see, the one reason that this movement has grown so rapidly over the last 14 months is because the people do see a voice for them in the militia. And we're excited to be that voice, and we want to be an honest voice and an open voice. And there's some fears out there in the country. You've heard about some of the fears this morning. Whether the fear has substance to it or not, it's still a fear, and it needs to be addressed. All fears need to be addressed and expose those fears. If they're real, then let's work on them. If they're not real, then let's expose them for what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Johnson.
Hi, how you guys doing? Senators? One of the things I wanted to bring up, first let me tell you who I am. Name's James Johnson, co-founder of a group called E Pluribus Unum, and one of the leaders and spokesperson for the Ohio Unorganized Militia. I've spoken to many groups around Ohio and in other states, and I've also helped start some groups. Now, what I wanted to touch on was what Mr. Thompson said. I think he focused on a key point, which was why these groups are forming. Why is it growing like it is? And that's some of the topics that need to be addressed, and I think maybe you can talk to some people on the inside like you have here to answer those questions. To put it to you bluntly, some of the legislation that's coming out of Washington, some of the executive actions that are taking place, ladies and gentlemen, these things started a revolution 200 years ago and got this country started. and the people are seeing this. The national news media and the actions of this government is some of the best recruitment we could have. We don't have to say much. All you have to do is talk to the average person out there to tell you, how do you feel about your government? And the people you look at here, we're the calm ones. We're the ones that calm people down. Now, I'm speaking here as a representative for my state and other groups that I know of. The animosity that I see out there between the citizens, all of them, and the government is frightening. What they did was, after listening to all these abuses and government atrocities that you're going to hear here today, and they saw that they were going to no avail, they decided to see what they could do to become part of the solution. They looked into the law, and under Title 10 U.S.C. 311, saw a phenomenon known as the unorganized militia that consists of all people, even the people taking these pictures right here, everyone. And they began to form themselves in units for their own self-defense and their self-preservation. Now, the way we stand now, and it's good that we're getting these views aired out, because 200 years ago, the British didn't get the hint until they saw dead redcoats out there. But this time, maybe we can get this out in the open and have things resolved. Because I feel, and it's concerning to me, and I'm being sincerely honest, that with the increasing polarization between the tax-paying public out here and what goes on, not only in here, but certain state governments, that the only thing standing between some of the current legislation being contemplated and armed conflict is time. It's one of the reasons I got in this movement, to help prevent that. Now, you can see from the last 2 years of sales from the firearms producers in this country, this nation is probably one of the most heavily armed forces on earth. And I have heard more and more people say, if one of these black-suited, armor-wearing, state-sponsored terrorists come kicking down my door, I'm going to blow somebody away. They don't call themselves militia. They don't even call themselves patriots. They call themselves American citizens who are getting tired of confiscatory tax rates, increasingly legislation, increasingly heavy regulations, which is, they believe, are leading them down a path to involuntary servitude. And one of the slogans that's been going around, especially in Ohio, is what I've been telling people, for those who think that this is just primarily an angry white male movement, is that if our ancestors would have been armed, they would not have been slaves. That's why people are getting armed. Not so much with firepower. That's not the thing that makes it dangerous. What makes it dangerous is that they're being armed with knowledge. What you're going to see is a growing number of citizens, and you're seeing that now, that's why we're here, move away from the authority that is here in the Beltway, and begin to create their own constitutional authority. You're going to begin to see this in the resurgence of the common law courts. You're going to begin to see this, and I'm going to summarize here, in the formation of the militias. That's what came first, to defend ourselves. But you're also going to see this on the legislative end. You're going to see our own candidates in our own elections, and hopefully that we can become a system which will attract others into a more constitutional gateway-based system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Olson.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. The following statement will attempt to answer the question of the legitimacy and the need of the citizen militia. Not only does the Constitution specifically allow the formation of a federal army, it also recognizes the inherent right of the people to form militia. Further, it recognizes that the citizen and his personal armament are the foundation of the militia. The arming of the militia is not left to the state, but to the citizen. However, should the state choose to arm its citizen militia, it is free to do so, bearing in mind that the Constitution is not a document limiting the citizen, but rather limiting the power of government. But should the state fail to arm its citizen militia, the right of the people to keep and bear arms becomes the source of the guarantee that the state will not be found defenseless in the presence of a threat to its security. It makes no sense whatsoever to look to the Constitution of the United States or that of any state for permission to form a citizen militia, since logically the power to permit is also the power to deny. If brought to its logical conclusion in this case, government may deny the citizen the right to form a militia. If this were to happen, the state would assert itself as the principal of the contract, making the people the agents. Liberty then would depend on the state's grant of liberty. Such a concept is foreign to American thought. While the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution recognizes the existence of the state militia and recognizes their necessity for securing a free state, and while it also recognizes that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, the Second Amendment is not the source of the right to form a militia nor to keep and bear arms. Those rights existed in the states prior to the formation of the Federal Union. In fact, the right to form militia and to keep and bear arms exists from antiquity. The enumeration of those rights in the Constitution only underscores their natural occurrence and importance. According to the 10th Amendment, ultimate power over the militia is not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution. Consequently, the power of the militia remains in the hands of the people. Again, the fundamental function of the militia in society remains with the people. Therefore, the Second Amendment recognizes that the militia's existence and the security of the state rests ultimately in the people, who volunteer their persons to constitute the militia and their arms to supply its firepower. The primary defense of the state rests with the citizen militia bearing its own arms. Fundamentally, it is not the state that defends the people, but the people who defend the state. The second line of defense of the state consists of a statutory organization known as the National Guard. Whereas the National Guard is solely the creation of statutory law, the militia derives its existence from the inherent inalienable rights which existed before the Constitution and whose importance are such that they merit specific recognition in that document. While the National Guard came into existence as the result of legislative activity, the militia existed before there was a nation or a constitutional form of government. The militia, consisting of people owning and bearing personal weapons, is the very authority out of which the United States Constitution grew. This point must be emphasized. Neither the citizen's militia nor the citizen's private arsenal can be an appropriate subject of federal regulation. It was the armed militia of the American colonies whose own efforts ultimately led to the establishment of the United States of America. While some may say that the right to keep and bear arms is granted to Americans by the Constitution, just the opposite is true. The federal government itself is the child of the armed citizen. We, the people, are the parent of the child we call government. You, senators, are part of the child that we, the people, gave life to. The increasing amount of federal encroachment into our lives indicates the need for parental corrective action. In short, the federal government needs a good spanking to make it behave. One other important point needs to be made. Since the Constitution is the limiting document upon the government cannot become greater than the granting power. The servant cannot become greater than its master. Therefore, should the chief executive or other branch of government or all branches together act to suspend the Constitution under a rule of martial law, all power granted to government would be canceled and deferred back to the granting power, that is the people. And I'll conclude with this statement: martial law shall not be possible in this country as long as the people recognize the Bill of Rights as inalienable. My statement is not complete, however, it has been made part of the record for those who would like to review it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, I heard you say on national television that you could understand why someone would bomb the Oklahoma City Federal Building. How can you say that? How can you understand why someone would bomb a building and kill so many innocent men, women, and children?
I don't believe that's the correct context, Senator Specter. I believe the context was, when they were asking me about the dynamic that occurred during following the bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, I was asked by Leslie Stahl, and I responded that I understand what took place. The good senator from Montana here earlier said that he understood why people hate their government. I don't think it's uncommon for us to seek understanding, because unless we understand a problem, we have no way of solving it. What I meant by that, and in the context, and you, Senator Specter, who sound-bited Leslie Stahl, and were wrong to do so, sir, you should have got the entire... Would you please allow me to finish my statement, sir? You should have received the whole context and allowed me to explain it. What I said was that I understand the dynamic of retribution. Revenge and retribution are a natural dynamic which occurs when justice is taken out of the equation. Back in the Old Testament, there were the cities of refuge. You who are students of the Old Testament know that those cities of refuge were placed in the Promised Land to allow a place to for a person to run if someone's life were taken, that a relative would not avenge the life of that one. That awaiting justice. When justice is removed from the equation, then the dynamic of revenge, retribution, and retaliation will take place. I understand the dynamic, sir. That is what I meant.
Well, all right, Mr. Wilson, let's not deal in sound bites. Do you now understand why someone bombed the Oklahoma City Federal Building?
The Oklahoma Federal Building, I would give that information to the FBI. I understand the dynamic, sir. It is up to you to do the investigation, and I feel that the FBI, for some reason, has taken 7 to 8 weeks to find someone who is not guilty. I think it's about time that they start looking for the ones who are guilty.
Now, we'll pursue parts of that later, but I'm not asking you for evidence as to who bombed it. When you say you tell the FBI, I want to know if you understand why somebody bombed the Oklahoma City Federal Building.
It has not been proven that somebody bombed the Oklahoma Federal Building. The fact of the matter is that one person has been taken into custody. There have been allegations made. He is an alleged bomber. I believe that we in the United States of America have to wait until the justice system takes its course. We are innocent until proven guilty. I don't know why somebody bombed. I'm saying that if someone were to be held accountable for that, and if that was the act of retaliation, revenge, or retribution, I understand the dynamics, sir, of that, because justice has been taken out of the equation. And when justice is taken out of the equation, revenge, retaliation, and retribution will take its course.
Well, whether it's singular or plural, the Oklahoma City Federal Building was bombed.
What are you looking for, Senator?
What am I looking for? Well, I hadn't finished my question, but I'll answer yours. What I'm looking for is your statement about understanding why the building was bombed, whether it's singular or plural. And you talk about vengeance, and you talk about retribution, and you talk about many factors, but what I want to understand from you is whether you understand, or stated differently, think there's any justification whatsoever, given your comments on vengeance and retribution, whether there's any justification whatsoever for the bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building.
Well, you're a clever attorney, sir, and I give you credit for trying to wrap my thoughts around your axle, but I'm not going to allow you to do that. Sir, it has not been proven that that person did that, nor has it been proven that that was in fact an act of retaliation, retribution, or revenge. We still have to wait the ongoing investigation. It very well may be that there was a conspiracy at higher levels, people behind those people who we have been fed by the press to accept or to believe that perhaps it was one angry individual. I say wait, let's do the investigation. Let's wait. 3 days after John F. Kennedy was killed, everybody believed that Lee Harvey Oswald did it. Today, many of us doubt that he alone did it. And you're the single bullet theorist, and you believe that he alone did it. We don't necessarily hold to that opinion, sir.
Well, if we can leave the single bullet theory for another day.
That's your choice.
No, I will stay and discuss the single bullet theory with you when the hearings are concluded. I'll be glad to do that on the record and in public. And I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth. I'm just asking a direct question. And I'm trying to understand what you understand. I cannot understand how anybody could understand why someone would bomb the Oklahoma City Federal Building as a matter of retribution.
Well, you don't understand the problem that we've had in Northern Ireland. You don't understand the problem that we've had in South Africa. You do not understand the hatred and the retaliation, the retribution and the revenge that has been going on around this globe since time immemorial. Then you don't understand the dynamics, sir.
Well, Mr. Olson, I may not understand, and that's why we've had these hearings, so that you could have a full opportunity to express yourself.
May I make a correction for the record, too? Senator Cole raised a poster a moment ago showing Hitler with his hand raised in the air. So that's a copyrighted poster produced by Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Ownership. It is not the work of some militia organization. So just to make that a comment for the record.
Well, we'll pick up your comment about copyrights and about Jews in a few minutes.
No, sir, I believe you're trying to lay at the feet. You're trying to lay at the feet of the militia some culpability as a responsibility. You're trying to make us out to be something that we are not, much like the press has tried to do over this last year. We are not what you think we are. We are not what the press wants to feed to the American people. We are people who are opposed to racism and hatred. We are people who love our government and love the Constitution. It has been the design and the blueprint for governments around this world. We're proud of the United States of America. But the thing that we stand against is corruption. We stand against oppression and tyranny in government. And many of us, are coming to the conclusion that you best represent that corruption and tyranny. There are millions, 40 to 70 million Americans out there on the other side of the Alleghenies, and there is intelligent life west of the Alleghenies, sir. And I believe that you have to talk to those people out there. You're wasting precious time.
Well, I'm not going to interrupt you in any of your responses.
I'm not going to go on preaching, sir. Go ahead.
But I am going to note you're interrupting me when I started to say to you that we will get back to your statement about copyright and about Jews. We'll get back to that. But what I want to come back to at this moment is your statement about retribution and violence and apparent justification for it.
Yes,
Now, wait a minute. I'm not going to let you interrupt me again. What I want to come to, and I want to have a full discussion with you, Mr. Olson, because I want your ideas fully exposed.
There are other people on this panel, sir, that
well, I know, but
need
I'm
to
the
share
chairman,
this.
and they'll have a chance to speak. And I'm not going to interrupt you at all whenever you start to reply. And what I want to do is I want to hear all your ideas, because I want your ideas compared to mine. And I want to let the American public judge whether you're right or I'm right. And when you talk about Ireland and you talk about South Africa and you talk about Oklahoma City, we're going to give you every opportunity to say everything you have in mind. And then I'm going to say a few things, and we're going to let the public judge. And I don't take lightly your comment to me that I represent corruption. I don't take that lightly at all.
Well, let me say it again.
And I want you to prove it if you're going to say that. And now the floor is yours.
I appreciate that. And I would like to correct Carl Levin also. He made some allegations and some statements that were absolutely fallacious. They are not true. And I believe that anyone who has the record of Carl Levin's statements earlier would like to talk to us. We would like to correct those for the record.
Proceed.
There are many statements concerning the Fowlerville people. The Fowlerville people were not part of the Michigan Militia Corps. Just about every fact that he brought forth, he did not name places or times or dates or the context of those investigations. He, together with many of these people seated and also the press before us, these people and you have tried to paint us in a different light. Following the Oklahoma City bombing, Louis Freeh, on the 27th of April, came out and said that the Michigan Militia Corps had nothing to do with the bombing in Oklahoma City. However, the press did not pick up on that. When you talk about, or when the senators talk about, or Carl Levin talks about how terrible it would be to even consider that the federal government had anything to do with killing Americans, I submit to you, sir, that the Central Intelligence Agency has been in the business of killing Americans and killing people in the United States and around the world since the 1946. I submit to you, sir, that the Central Intelligence Agency is probably the grandest conspirator behind all of this government. And I submit to you, sir, that perhaps the puppeteer strings of the Central Intelligence Agency reach even into the senators, perhaps before us and perhaps also in the Senate of the United States of America.
Well, as long as you say perhaps, Mr. Olson. Senator Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to read to you, Mr. Olson, a fax that you sent out on April 28th to the American people, and it said this: "The wrath of the country has been directed toward the brave men and women of the Michigan Militia. Now, here's the truth. On April 19th, 1995, a day that will live in infamy, the government of Japan, in retaliation for the United States gas attack on the subway in Japan, blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City." That's the fax from you to the American people on April 28, 1995. Would you care to comment on it?
I have a 40-page document that I have prepared, a transcript of an audio tape that is available to the press. We encourage the press to see me at the press conference this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the White Room on the 13th floor of the National Press Club building, and I will be happy to provide you with 40 pages of transcript. Do your own investigation.
Well, are you standing by that fax?
I'm saying that bits and pieces of information are conveyed and brought to the attention of the Michigan Militia Corps. We have established safe houses. We have established places of protection where people inside the agencies can come to us with information concerning corruption. And when they do,
Mr.
we
Olson,
take, sir, let me follow.
You haven't said it
I'll
yet.
be very brief. When they bring facts to us, we hand it over to the media to investigate. We do not have the resources or the wherewithal to investigate all of these facts.
You haven't responded. I said to you, you respond to the facts that you sent out on April 28th. It says, on April 19th, a day that will live in infamy, the government of Japan, in retaliation for the United States gas attack on the subway in Japan, blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City. Your
And
fact.
I reply to you, sir, that if we wait and the investigation is done, I believe that we will find collusion between governments in the involvement in the Oklahoma City bombing, if we will wait and allow the investigations to be conducted.
All right. Mr. Fletcher, as I mentioned in my statement, the militia of Montana claims that there are, quote, lesbians, sex perverts, child molester advocates, Christian haters, and the most doctrinaire of communists heading the FBI and the IRS. Now, Mr. Fletcher, with respect to the IRS, I have no quarrel with you.
So be it, sir.
But my friend Louis Freeh is a different matter. So I would like to ask you, are you suggesting that he is a lesbian or a sex pervert, a child molester advocate, or a Christian hater, or a communist?
Well, first off, that's not my quote, so that for the record we clear that. And I think that comes out of a singular book that we carry, the same as the library carries, and that's the extent of that. Now, those people that live inside the Beltway have to select their own friends and figure out what their sexual status is, and there's a huge variety at the highest levels of this government in that direction. What I would like to point out, though, that you bring up Mr. Freeh, and an interesting thing has taken place actually almost a year ago, July the 2nd. Mr. Freeh was in Poland, and he made a Nazi-related speech, and it was a memorial to the Jewish camps and the Holocaustic action that took place there. And he said an interesting statement. He said that what happened 50 years ago is not just a history as much as it is a warning. And Mr. Freeh said that, in fact, at any time that any nation of the world starts to utilize local police with their federal enforcement and starts to federally arm the police at a local level, as Adolf Hitler did as he slowly came in and did his outrageous acts back in 1940 and 38, he said that anytime we see this, it's an immediate red flag that that nation is probably moving into a dictatorship. Well, within a single year, we start supplying local police agencies with armored personnel carriers. This, by the way, is just the sheriff's department. Those are not military. This is the sheriff's department in Everett, Washington. These armored personnel vehicles are being supplied by federal enforcing agents to a whole variety of local police agencies. This is exactly part of what Mr. Freeh was telling the folks in Poland and the rest of the world to be aware of as a sign of moving in a dictatorship. This is only one small part of that, sir. This is what I would refer to as a terrorist. These are FBI enforcing agents dressed in their black outfits. This, sir, is an ATF agent in its black outfits. This used to be a terrorist. If an American saw this character going down the street, any American, 10, 15 years ago, they would have shot this sucker because this is a picture of a terrorist. This is now the ATF agents. We have questions relative to going beyond Mr. Freeh's point of hundreds of flat cars of United Nations Russian equipment all over the United States. We have questions as to why the United States Army, with this document I have here, has put together the...
Well, there you go. What is it? 39 minutes exactly that we've been able to get through. And I'll leave this up and I'll play the rest of it when the show is over. But it really leaves us down to one of two choices, doesn't it? the militia is either a bunch of goof dicks, or they are what they say they are, which is patriotic Americans. So let's investigate that. Let's look at the who, what, where, why, when, and how. And we've got some local Ohio businesses to advertise for today. And what I've been able to do is find folks that are activists and patriots and protesters, and some of them that are going into business for themselves. Those are the ones I'm going to back up. So, all right, let's get into militia right after the music. Thanks for joining Diametric Opposition.
We both tell you what. Life can be hard, but you just gotta push through.
Sometimes just let it go. Plant seeds in your mind, water it with rhymes and let it grow. Attack with actions, words only worth half, and that's the exact fraction. Life's more massive than anyone's ask, but actors act like it's only their path until they're blasted. Lessons are experience reflected through your lenses. Perception bends presence, connections, and attention causes tension. Respect connects unless it gets no reflection. Who's the boss, but who's on top? It's tossed off, the logic is crossed, twisted significantly, people can't see the cause. Consider the visions of God's divinity, the Trinity, and consider other religions, even heathenistic decisions that offer different visions. Educate, levitate, to calculate the odds. Condition your position before you get lost. It's the S&S crew, Democrats be the squad.
S to the K, H, Y to the J, E, D, I. Cause we stay high so fly, you know it. Cause I'm a poet glowing like the sun, so bright a show and flowing like the night is done. Patrolling, taking control of the lyrical soul. Speaking vocal frequencies, spoken like my spit was sonar. Beheading like a ninja, revving in just like a Mopar. My baby cast a goal when she inspired us to go far. I don't do it for the dubs, I do it for the love. And I don't do it for the clubs, the shape-shifting fake thugs. I'm just playing what you hand me. You can turn the other way and fall back on that plan B. That's all fine and dandy, we the S&S crew. We wickedly spitting written encryptions for submissions that we can see through. So while you switching your positions and giving up on your condition, Joe, we can see you. I'm a suburban hip-hop caper, rip your tip top like it's paper. Take your mixtape and I rape her, so stop waiting, play a hater. What you gon' do? I'm sick of this child's play. All this shit is complaining, straining on my vocal cords like I broke the open door. Burning bridges to the core, cord and visions, my reward. My incisions make it sore, then we pass it off and we explore.
Tune into the movement to view the conclusion. S&S crew improvement, congruent with the coolest, no fooling. Leave your medulla oblongata drooling, feeling foolish like a broken tool, you can't use it. Screw loose, no moving, drilling it out, Dremel useless. Smooth away the with rules from rulers, teachers and students, lawyers and movers, construction workers and drillers do what we need to do for the moolah. To use our computers, television, cell phones, and to fuel us. Funerals concluded, included with tulips. The cost of life really can't be computed from loot, but ladders and hoops, compounding fractals and loops, created to sedate to separate us from the natural. It's a plan devised tactical. We need to break and cut loose from this noose, it's not practical.
Man, that makes me wanna slap a hoe.
But I won't let you. I may be under pressure, but I'm more like a professor giving lectures, always learning. Some people build bridges and some people start burning. Start learning and turn it around and change your life. Cause maybe you will end up having only strife and pain. It's not the same as it used to be. Some people try to take the game away from you ruthlessly. It's not the same, it's strange, and it maintains on a different plane. Man, it just fucks with my brain.
Twisted, subliminal, paranormal, mortal phrases. Uplifted, formally, courteously, I'm enormously racist. Vicious, the gifted one, malicious. With a flip of the tongue, test the S to the S to meet the hit with a stick of a bitch, just run.
Why we gotta live our lives this way? Why we gotta live our lives this way?
Yeah, man. S&S crew. S&S crew is also local. They are also local to the Ohio area, local Native Americans. So, militia, militia, militia. That word means so many things when people hear it, different people. It has a different meaning for different folks, and I don't want to ignore any of the uncomfortability that comes with talking about it is a lot of people know that have been around for a while. I don't shy away from a whole lot, and I like to discuss what I can, whether it's racism, religion, whatever, I don't care. You know, I think, and a lot of other people feel this way as well, that if you're going to, like racism, for example, if you're going to have racism, if it's going to exist, then, and you don't like it, and you want to get rid of it, the only way to do that is to confront it head on. And saying racism is bad, okay, that's not going to get rid of it. You know, you have to face it head on. Well, militia, right? Leaves a bad taste in some people's mouths, makes other people proud. And so how did we get to a point where militia became a point of contention? How does that happen? If you're unaware, the militia is your last line of defense. And hello, Moesha, and hello, Bergie, and hello, Miss Sea Gypsy. And Joyce said she'll be back here in a minute. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I can't get my camera to work right now, so I'll keep working on that, and then I'll see what I can do during the break, but it's not working for me. I don't know what the deal is. Anywho, how did we get to this point with our militias? So this show is going to talk about the irregular militias, the unregulated militias. We're going to talk about what are the differences and what is the function of a militia. What is the purpose of a militia? What do they do? Throughout the week, later on in the week, we'll have militia members on the show. You'll be able to hear, as usual, from the proverbial horse's mouth. I was going to have Mr. Erickson Harrell on today from Florida. He is a police officer. He is also a member of Anonymous. And the show yesterday got canceled because of weather, so today we just decided to go ahead and with Militia Week, and we can have Mr. Erickson on at any time. So he may be on this week as well. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. So our militias that we have here in the United States, how did they get to a position of being bastardized? How did they get to a position where people, at one point in time, the Minutemen militia were the heroes. They were the saviors of the day of the nation. They gave us this country. So how is it that we got to a point where all of a sudden the militias have been bastardized? What happened was, just as much as you can look around this nation and see that it has changed almost entirely from its inception, one of the many things that's been turned on its head is the reputation of militia. Now, this had to happen. This was an absolute necessity. If you want control of the American people, you cannot allow them to buy into an idea like a militia. This has self-governance wrapped all around it, right? We're responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for our own actions, and we look at things from a communal point of view. So if you're the enemy of the United States people, you absolutely cannot allow this to remain in the tone or in the pulse or in the spirit of the people. You have to destroy what it is that is a militia. So we have a militia. We have the country's inception. The militia was in good standing for quite some time, but we didn't see we haven't seen domestic threats. So as time goes by, people are still practicing militia order. And as more and more time goes by, people say, you know what, we're a sovereign country, we're doing well, we're number one in the world, you know, and this is before our Great Depression, obviously. They say, you know, we're kicking ass, we're keeping up with England in every bit of industry, we're able to compete on every level of industry as a fledgling nation. Nobody in their right mind is going to invade the United States of America. Our military will decimate whatever comes in our way. And we built up a military more than a militia. As we did this, we changed the tone and the pulse of society as well. We hit our depression, we come out of the depression, we go into world wars. right? We started to focus on other things as a nation, Eastern philosophies, things like this. But all of that was distracted and stopped when we went into different, we went World War I, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, things like this. In the meantime, the political climate of the country had to do with those things that were on the forefront. Now, in all of this, all of these wars, all of the political change, the cultural change, and the societal change here, we have not been troubled domestically. So it was a reason for people to look at militia and say, what in the hell are you doing? Nobody's going to invade the U.S. Nobody's going to bother the U.S. No one in their right mind is ever going to attack us. Meanwhile, the tone and the pulse of the militia has pretty much stayed the same. They say, enemies both foreign and domestic, right? And this isn't extreme speech. This is how our doctrine is written, our founding documents. They are written this way, you know, to say, you will have enemies that are foreign away from your lands. But in all actuality, in all possibility, you're going to incur enemies domestically. Now, they're absolutely correct, right? So they start to berate the militias and say, you guys aren't doing anything, you know? You guys aren't even serving any real purpose. And people in this country 70 years ago started to see how we were being stripped of the Constitution. Right after World War I, and we brought all the Nazis back here, and the Nazi research, and the Nazi scientists, things like this, we really started to look in different directions, scientifically and societally. As a government, as a power structure, our enemy fights us asymmetrically. Our enemy, our ruling class, fights us from the inside. And the people that said to the militia members for years, you guys are crazy, they would never, attack us, what are they going to do, bomb Florida, They were absolutely correct, because there's no way you could win that fight. The only way to destroy America would be asymmetrically. That's the only way. You have to destroy us from the inside. You have to take over and then subvert our positions of leadership now. When you think about that, and you think about it in relation to your country, consider what it is you see today, and then consider this. What does your country look like, and how safe do you feel without a militia presence? Because for those of you who do not know, your militia is your last line of defense. If the White House accomplishes their goal of federalizing the United States police forces, then you can wipe your ass with the United States Constitution, because it won't mean anything. It will have no weight whatsoever. And the militia, if it exists, is the only force at that point that stands in between full-blown fucking tyranny and freedom. That's the function, that's the purpose, that's what they're doing here. Now, who is the militia? The militia consists of well-shaven professionals. The militia consists of mothers, fathers, blue-collar working stiffs that are your co-workers, friends, and neighbors. These are the people that work sales jobs, pizza jobs, corporate jobs, business analyst jobs. They're also militia members. They train on the weekend. Many of them are college educated. A good portion of them are veterans of the United States military. The United States military, as we know, is the most highly trained force on planet Earth. And it's because we're good at war and we finance the crap out of it. So we basically have a ton of former military with citizenry. So they train the citizenry on things. And now we do have a force. We have a way to protect ourselves. But more than that, right? What is the militia capable of, and what does the militia take part in, right? Our local 3% militia, and I'm going to explain 3% here in a minute. 3%. 3% of the nation was what it took to successfully revolt and beat some British ass off of our shores. Right? 3% of the nation is what it took to successfully do that. Now, I've read things that talk about revolutions everywhere, anywhere in the world. They only need around 3% of the population. Now ask yourself, with all of the rights taken, with all of the policies and the regulations and all the politics, percentage-wise, how many Americans do you think are pissed off right now? I personally think it's a hell of a lot more than 3%. So that's where the name 3% Militia comes from. 3% Militia here in the central Ohio area and northern and southern Ohio area, they do food drives. They have a Patriot Pantry. They go out in the heat, in the cold, they hold signs, they say, I'm a 3% member, and we're doing a food drive. And then there are families that are, just like, say there's one situation was a militia member that was aware of one of his neighbors that he was cool with the guys, he knew them, and knew that they were struggling for some food. So the militia went and did a food drive. This family had no idea. No idea. And we've done this more than once. We've done this for numerous families. Went out, did the food drive, got the food, and when you go out and do a food drive, commonly people say, you know what, I just did all of my shopping. I can't give you my food. That's my grocery list. So here's $40, stuff like that. So then you use that for diapers, and getting more things, whatever it can be, more tailored to that family's needs. This is militia. This is what they do. When they say that they're here for the community, they are here for the community. That's what they do. They understand that it makes every bit of sense to lift up the community around them. Now, they're also well aware of dealing in the reality that says people view the militia as a bunch of redneck, beer drinking, wife beating, going out and hiding in the woods type of people, right? Everybody's heard this, and some of us have even believed this stigma. Some of the people listening may be listening because that is the stigma they believe. So this is important. What right do I have to speak on militia, right? What right do I have? I mean, where is it that look, I'm just some dork from Ohio, right? I mean, what the hell do I know? What could I possibly know? Well, I've worked with the militia. And when I say I've worked with the militia, I've worked with Minutemen, 345th Southern Brotherhood, Guardians of Society, and they're not militia, they're more of community action, but they also work with militia. They teach like omniculture, horticulture, stuff like that. Our local 3%'s up north. Now irregulars out in Fairfield County, Ohio. And they've got an event coming up, I think, if it's been approved. So I personally have worked with these groups. I know these people. I know the married couples that are both in the militia and they have kids and everything, and they are just, mom and dad working stiffs Monday through Friday. On the weekend, the kids go over to the grandparents' house and they go and they train. They come back, they grab the kids, and it's mommy and daddy time with the kids, man. I mean, and there's nothing. That's it. That's it. They go to their jobs, they work their asses off, just like you and I, and then they actually do more than a lot of us do because they still find time on the weekends to train. Well, what in the hell are they training for, if you ask them, right? I mean, because now let's look into, are these a bunch of lunatics? Do they want to blow up buildings? Are they trying to kill people, right? Right? Well, if that was the case, I'm pretty sure the country would be burning, right? That's not dealing in any kind of reality. If we had a bunch of lunatics like that, shit would be burning. It would be on fire right now. So that's not dealing in any kind of reality. These are just working stiffs. These are blue-collar working stiffs that are looking around, watching the United States change in incredible ways at neck-break speed. And it looks as though to most of us, not because I'm not a member of the militia, I work with the militias. I help organize events. I help to promote, and we're constantly doing things. We're constantly retooling. We're constantly trying to find a better way, and trying to find good information, and these are folks that care greatly about this nation. I hope, if anything, today, I hope to rob everyone of the opportunity that comes to this broadcast with the preconceived notions that the militia is a bunch of rednecks. Right? I hope to rob you of that opportunity today, because once you've been told something else, hopefully I'm able to articulate to you well enough that you find it where you investigate for yourself, because that's what this is about. You need to be able to discern this for yourself, what a militia is and what it is not. Right? If it's a bunch of lunatics, if it's a bunch of people that want to kill, there would be a bunch of people dead, because these are heavily armed, highly motivated, well-trained people. Right? So all of that, all of the preconceived notions, if the C-SPAN that I played for you guys wasn't enough, then understand I'm somebody who has worked with the militia now for quite some time, many different militias. Right? So I've gotten to check that tone and that pulse of all of these guys. I'm not going to work with a bunch of damn lunatics because I don't want to blow up. That's pretty fucking simple. I don't want to be shot either. I'm here trying to do this. I've got a kid I try to get home to, and I've got a wife I try to get home to. None of us are going to put ourselves in a compromising position like that. None of us. We're only here because we care. We're only here because we're concerned. And if you're somebody who believes you are watching your country circle the drain, then you have every reason to check out your militia. If it isn't something you like, then create your own and we will help you. We have the resources. We have the tools. From Solutions Institute to the leadership in the 3% that seems to help every other state militia. We've got the structure down. We know exactly what to do. And when it comes to membership, this was something that was brought up in the advertisement. Oathkeeper out west was saying things like, oh, militias are just people that work with cops. What's funny is I actually tested the militia about a week ago on this, and I got my ass handed to me. They were like, what the fuck? They were losing their minds, because I asked them, I said, who here, if you are a militia member or not, would work with the federal government, right? Say the federal government comes in, because the whole shit down in Texas where Governor Jackassface was saying, I've asked the militia to work with the federal government, this, that, and the other. When initially it was reported that he had called upon the militia to keep an eye on the Operation Jade Helm activities. So that was why I brought it up. Boy, they thought I lost my fucking mind. They were like, dude, we're not here for government. We are here for the people. We are here for our families, our friends, our neighbors, and people we'll never meet. If you're an American citizen, we're here as that last line of defense to protect you. When all shit that kid from Cali, he doesn't know anything about Oregon militia. Okay. Cody was the one that was on the thread, and he was saying, militias are racist. That was a big one. He said they're racists and they're alcoholics and all of this. This is my answer to that, right? If you've been alive for any period of time, you're going to run into every type of human being, right? What all of the activists, protests, militia, what everybody has come around to, which I think is a natural progression for all of us. What everybody has come around to is if you're an American and you believe you're watching your country circle the drain, we don't give a shit if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, we don't give a fuck about your religion, we don't care about the color of your skin, we don't give a shit how you speak. It does not matter, because each and every one of us stands to lose. Every single one of us stands to lose. You won't be a Republican. You won't be a Democrat. You'll be whatever state-sponsored party you have. And if you don't be that, then you probably won't be around in any healthy capacity for much longer. Your state-sponsored religion, your state-sponsored clothes, your state-sponsored GMO food, all of that. Every single bit of it. The militia are your neighbors. They're the people answering the phones when you call places. And they sound just like you and I. They are not a bunch of racists. They are not a bunch of wife-beaten alcoholics. But I'll tell you what they are. I'll tell you what they really are. And a lot of people in the militias may not like hearing this because it's brutally fucking honest, all right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything's a bunch of fucking flowers and gravy. It's not. The militias are under heavy scrutiny. This puts them under a lot of pressure. They have to be very careful about their membership. They can't be known as a hate group for half a second or they become completely ineffective in their community. You have no idea the stress that these XOs and COs are under to have a militia that makes sense, that says, I don't give a shit. If you're an American and you want your country back from this criminal-ass ruling class, come on down, join our ranks, we'll train you, we'll help you, and whatever you bring to the table, we'll take that as virtue into our group as well. That's your militia. 2015 America, that is your militia. Now, there are oath keepers that have been accused of working with police and committing crimes for the police. There are oath keepers, there are militia out west that have blatantly worked with the government, the police, on both a state and federal level. When I asked the boys out here in the Midwest, they thought I lost my fucking mind. See, there's something different out here. The dynamic out here says that we don't trust government and we don't rely on them for anything. We rely on our family, we rely on our friends, we rely on ourselves, and we don't ask government for shit. We don't call the law. You know, we handle things our own. You know? It's the only thing that makes sense anymore. That's what your militia is. That's who your militia is. Your militia wants to empower you, whether you're a member of their militia or not. And this is what I can tell you from my own personal experience. I guarantee you, every single event that I went to had a militia member there with a gun. Period. And I wanted them there, and at times I felt like I needed them there. And every time I go out, I make sure that my militia knows where I'm going. This is the event. This is the time. Will you please come? Because I feel safer when you are there. I feel safer when there are Americans around me that understand the Constitution. They have guns with them in case ISIS or the police come to kick some ass. We'll be able to give it right back. We are free men and women, ladies and gentlemen, free. That's what you'll hear here. Free men and women speaking freedom. There is no other way that we're going to live. We're not going to live with any boot on our neck. We're figuring out how unity works. We understand it's not clean. We understand it gets messy. It can be sloppy. You get people in any group. I don't care what it is. Now, you got to figure, I work with the militias. I'm very well aware of their membership and what it is they go through. And it's incredibly unfortunate that, you know, look, for all of the people, this is for real. For all of the people who want to be in the militia, they can only take a third. Think about that. There has to be a standard in place. So, they created one, and it's a good one. The models that we have set and put forth here in Ohio, whether it's a militia standard or an activist standard, a protester standard, a rallier standard, we have built the structure, and we want everybody to emulate it. Anybody who thinks it'll work for their area, you let us know, and we'll show you how we've put it in place. Because we've got women, we've got men. We even created little bug-out bags for kids, you know, for some of the events that kids come to. That way they can have fun. And we've got people that'll take them out into the woods, right? And if you got people, like, on for one of the areas, It's out in Plain City, Ohio, right? There's a range on one side, and then there's this wooded area on the other side. There's kids that can go out. No, this was years and years ago. I was a kid. But you can go, the kids go into the woods, and people teach you how to make a fire with a metal match. Just like basic survivalist stuff. And they taught me how to track, how to track animals and track people in case somebody's lost. Omniculture, horticulture, using compost. Militias offer services. Militia offers virtue and value that is not commonly practiced in this country anymore, and should be. What do you think's going to happen when the grocery stores all shut down and there is no more food? What do you think's going to happen? You got militia members that know how to hunt, know how to trap, know how to smoke meat, know how to can food, you know what I mean? This goes on and on and on. Your militia ends up being one of the most virtuous parts of your society. And in the United States, the militia is unique. So, I'm going to take a break. We'll listen to a tune or two, and when I come back, we'll discuss a few more of the finer points of our militia here locally, and what militia means, what it really means, the essence of it. Because when I say it's unique to the United States, what I mean is we're the only country in the world, ladies and gentlemen, the only country in the world that has a right to an unregulated militia. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that if you're listening to this and you say, well, I'm not a member of the militia, I'm actually here to tell you that you are. And the way that it was written, any man above the age of 17 that's able-bodied, you're a member of the unregulated militia. Congratulations. And it has to be that way. So we'll get more into that, and as the week goes, we'll talk about the difference between the 3%, irregulars, unregulated, things like this. And like I said, we'll talk to some members too. Now, if you guys go to, let me put this in the chat. That way you guys have access to it. One of our activist buddies here, and he's in a militia in Ohio. He has Hats Off Custom Works. And what he does is he designs logos and things such as that nature. 3% logos, Christian logos. He's got a real good hand, a real good artistic eye, and it's someone that we can support if that's something you like. That's something you can check out and help support somebody who's real small time. It's him, his wife, and a couple of kids, and this is what he's doing. So check him out. That is Hats Off Customs on Facebook. Facebook.com/hats HATTS off customs ? Check that one out. Our other one for today is TechSmith, TEK, and then Smith, and it's TechSmith PC Repair on Facebook. This is also another militia member that has a wife and kids and is trying to help folks out that have computer issues, which is all of us. So it's www.facebook.com/TEK Smith PC Repair ? And so those are some people you can support, man. Those are militia members you can support. These are good folks. I know these people. I have spoken to these people. I'm getting ready to rally with these people. We've raised money for one of these militias before. So when I talk about the militia, first and foremost, I don't like talking about myself. Nobody gives a fuck about me. I don't care about me either. But when I talk about militia, I want you guys to know that it comes from a place of experience. It comes from a place of me actually standing in all weather next to a militia member. It didn't matter what the event was. It did not matter what the event was. They were there, and they were there. I'll wait till I come back. Let me ask you guys to ask yourself this. Why would a militia go to a protest or a rally for, say, and the Federal Reserve, or for an anti-Monsanto rally, or something like that. And welcome back, Joyce. Glad you're here. Joyce is one of the coolest fucking human beings on planet Earth, by the way. So, you know, get that question swimming around in your brain. I'll answer it when I come back. Why would a militia ever go to a rally and stand next to people in anonymous masks? Why would they stand next to anti-Common Core protesters? Why would they do that? So I'll answer that when I come back. Thanks for listening, guys, and check out those business owners of ours. Trust me, it gets no more small-time and grassroots than this.
Chomp the beat like Mr. Pack, I launch another missile track. The master and commander is a spark, another swisher back. A monster and I'm back, attacking, conquering. In fact, I'm conjuring tactical goblins, now I'm hunting project stacks. Hopping them like Crash fucking Bandicoot. But I'm not a bandit, dude. Cooper cannon shoot, damn the loot. I'm here to damage you. Metroid Prime just like I'm Samus. Amateurs get painted like they canvas, and I'll eat you like a sandwich. Maximum the pain, but no games cause I ain't playing. You left for dead just saying, I'll be aiming at your cranium. Punch out Tyson swaying, no Iron Man titanium. Breathing fireman, I'm spiral flying through your home retirement. Riding with contraband like Contra. 18 van filled with ganja, Fantasy Star Saga. Sonic Springs, I'll launch you through some chronic rings of smoke. I gotcha, hops a obstacle to the top, boss imposter. Whether it's Godzilla, Gorilla, or Hitman Killers, my finger is on the trigger, increasing the score ticker. Feather shoes be more quicker, relevant scripture. Stomp the hordes, crunch your even to a 4 before you bigger, quicker. Grab some liquor, pixelated, twisted, Mr. My transistor, picture, fist of fury, barely Mr. History is listed, hindered from the missions of a sick where y'all can barely see me like Magoo, you got a shit score. I am top 10 villain, Dr. Robotnik. Spock is on the turntable, shockingly rocking it. Knocking out competitors while you just bust a move. While I'm stacking on these bars like Tetris, flexing, I'm so smooth. You know I'm taking out your Kuso, Ruby Malone. Wet him jetted, not a threat to be had with the chrome. Not upsetted, redemption's red-deaded, indebted, no more credit when the prototype's embedded in your bones. I'm always crafty, mind by that I mean explosives. So it's not a rhyme scheme, borrowed of my motives. Time be reminding me to find the golden tokens. Greedy little me, and yes, assassins is my breed. I am the baddest company per rapper, rapping classically. Button mashing, mad and dashing means nobody's catching me. This is where you fight for life like dying light at night. I'm frightful, it's got you stressed, yo, but not as sick as Zombie XO. The bigger the vest, but trigger the head, you figure the rest is helpful. Hit with the shiver, the literal killer ability, still with the skills to melt you. So bow down to Zod, Haran, and thoughts of zombies gone. The herbicide, a model, calm the ninjas on your lawn. Now open up your eyes and see the evil within. Angels and demons and sin, the darkness leaves you condemned. Had enough yet? So fast on the clutch of my overdrive sunset. Master of puppets, not a naughty bear, but it even clears upset. It's the success of a starship trooper, roughneck, back to the future. Loop with suspect number numerals, get back that bitch in a 8-bit world. But I got this pixel perfect, gross up blemish with neck, make you 12 monster, I'll roar your dinosaur. So blow another bong and sing along just like you know me, till I pop out of the shadow, cut you short just like Shinobi. Lay the smackdown on your ass until you tapping out, jabroni. Ain't no phony, always game at home, I make come Mr. Lonely. Pack a Tecmo Bowl, now Ralph a Rackabo. Dismount you skepticals, I'll joust you off your ostrich. I'm just awesome, I'm impeccable, except I've lost my sedibles. The crest from Zelda Centerfold in the case of Elder Scrolls. Go ahead and raise the black flag like you able, or go back and take the right path like Fable. This nuisance revolutionist is about to turn the table, so don't mess with weed like Nintendo, I'll have to cut the cable. Step back or get hacked into a dark sector. Twisted metal, shoot a missile through a wall. Spectre, I got my word and I'm made of balls. Vector, every console I'm an achievement collector.
SNS crew had to do a song for gamers, and that's it. It's called 8-Bit. So I went ahead and put Hats Off Custom Works and TechSmith up there so you guys could see the pages and check those out. Now they'll be on the video as well, so everyone can check those out, man. Support those guys. So I asked you a question before we left. What business does a militia have? Why would they support other ralliers? Why would they do that? The answer is so simple, right? People politicize everything. They want to find confrontation and try to disrupt almost everything. And it's unfortunate that it's a huge part of our nature now to be like this. But the fact is those are Americans expressing their rights, their God-given natural rights. Right? They're American freedoms. That's freedom of speech. That's freedom of expression. That's freedom in their right to peacefully assemble. If Americans are going to do that, the militia here has decided to support them, to show them when we say that we're here for the community, we're here for the community. The politics, it's not what's important. It doesn't matter what if it's Common Core and the Fed, whatever. If Anonymous is out there because they're doing an anti-corruption rally, well, guess what? Those people in those masks, those sons and daughters in those masks, those are Americans, right? The militia consists of people that believe all kinds of things, and they've decided that giving each other the dignity of each other's choices and beliefs was most important. As long as they found themselves in a like-minded position, they had every reason to respect each other's opinions. Kind of sounds old-fashioned, doesn't it? It should, because it is. Because it's something that should be a staple for all of us. The militia, come to find out, has preserved some of the finest things about our country. And it makes sense that your enemy would want you to hate them, berate them, and talk stupid shit about them. If the word militia tastes like shit coming out of your mouth, then your enemy has done their job. They understand that is your last line of defense. That's your last line. So if you don't trust in them, if you don't believe in them, guess who's fucked? You, me, and all the people we care about. Everyone we love. Because we just forsook our last line of defense. The last line of people that give a shit about us or this country or our capability to preserve what it is to have an American way of life. Right? Now listen. Nationalism, right? Well, you're a nationalist. Okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of labels with people. If you can't tell the tone of this movement, the tone of the belief that everybody has, whether they're militia, whether they're sovereign, whether they're anonymous, whether they're a protester, rallier, organizer, community organizer, whatever it is, we all in tandem feel and think and believe the exact same way. So whatever you call one of us, whatever label it is you have decided to buy into to try to divide yourself from us, or try to make us divide ourselves, I'm not going to argue with you on that. The semantics are what they are, and people feel however they feel. They can believe whatever they believe. But today, you have been told something different. You are being told by somebody who has actually... I'm not a member of the militia. I'm not. I'm Activist Liaison Network. That's who I am. Activism has everything to do with nationalism, patriotism, freedom, right? By nature, we're trying to preserve our freedom on the basis that this is our nation. And let me tell you something, there isn't anything wrong with that. I'm proud that the people before us that made the choices they made for us to be able to have, with all of the people and their good intentions, for us to be able to have this country, this land, this space. See, I didn't grow up in Bangladesh. I don't live in Djibouti. Right? And I'm thankful for that. I've been to foreign countries and I've been to third world countries, and it changed my whole fucking outlook. In all the impoverished neighborhoods I've seen in the U.S., we don't have one shantytown like what I saw in South America. It doesn't exist. I am grateful for what I have. And none of us are willing to squander it. That militia stands there understanding and realizing the strength of their ancestors. They decided to stand in the scrutiny of a public eye that they fight for. That's the kind of strength that a militia is. That's the kind of strength it takes to be a militia woman or a militia man. Fighting for something you know and understand intrinsically, inherently is the right thing, regardless of what your fellow countrymen and women think about it. You understand? the kind of strength it takes to be in a militia today? Do you understand the kind of desperation that people are starting to feel around you? To force themselves into positions of cognitive dissonance just to entertain something that may be true and hopeful. I'm here to tell you it is true and it is hopeful. I'm not saying that any organization is perfect, because it's not, because it's filled with dumbass Americans. But we are trying. We're doing everything in our power to stay true to the United States Constitution, because we understand that it preserves our freedoms. But we also understand that Constitution doesn't protect any fucking one of us. That piece of paper has not and never will jump up and kick anybody's ass. We protect the Constitution, and by we, I mean the militia. I mean the 3%. I mean the irregulars. I mean the unregulated militias. There is no one else. No one else is coming to save this country, ladies and gentlemen. You have no other voice of opposition that is saying this, except for the militia and the freedom fighters that work with them and around them. I hope people are starting to understand. I hope people are starting to feel the gravity of this situation. Do you understand? It was the militia that understood the power that women had in this country. And they honored the position of the women that they loved, married, and lived around. They honored each other's presence, and they fought together for this country. We wouldn't have this country if it were not for ladies. I'm telling you right now, read your fucking history. Read actual, what they call now, alternative history. Alternative U.S. history. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. It's not alternative. It's history. Let me tell you guys a story before we go. We only have 13 minutes left. I wanted to tell you more today. I've been blah, 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 like I usually do. Nope. There goes my phone. Here's the story. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was here on our lands. And you know what? Let me say this before I tell you the story. This is the part that I was going to say earlier that the militiamen may not like, because it's brutally honest. The militia today looks almost exactly like the Minutemen militia that helped us to found this country. And let me tell you why. Nobody believed in them. And a lot of them, they didn't believe in themselves. They just knew what they had to do. Does this sound familiar to any of you? They understood they were up against a juggernaut that they had very little chance of living against. That once this fight was started, they really didn't have a chance of winning. The population around them made it to where there were only 3%. 3% of the population were the only ones that had the balls to stand up and say, you know what? You come fucking around in my backyard much more, for much longer, and just keep talking that stupid shit, and I promise you, you're gonna eat some hot lead. I'm telling you, we're not playing these fucking games with your British dumbass much longer. People didn't believe him. They said the sun doesn't set on the British Empire. You're never gonna beat the British off of this continent. You've lost your fucking mind. And the militia knew. But they also knew they didn't have a choice. In their souls, they were a freedom fighter, and they knew it. And it would have been hell to live any other life than to fight. They knew exactly who they were, and they knew what they were. And they knew that the odds were stacked against them. They knew they were up against the most powerful juggernaut that the earth had ever seen. Again, the sun never sat on the British Empire. That's the militia today. They are up against a juggernaut and no one believes in them. And a lot of themselves, they don't believe in themselves. They feel like they can't. Look at this powerful ruling class we're up against, but you think for a second that'll stop them from fighting? You've lost your fucking mind. These people will fight to the death without question. because they understand what's at stake. And this isn't actually about us. We're fighting for the future. That's also an American tradition. They built roads for the future. They built the 2 towers for the future economy, for the future of our country. Well, we'll beat some criminal ruling class ass for the future, because this probably won't pan out well for us. In all actuality, it won't, because it took years. It took a while for them to beat the British. Now, I want you to think about this story as I close out the last 10 minutes. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, but at midnight, they had heard the British were coming. So they had posted up and they were ready. They knew that the British were coming for an ammunition supply outpost in Concord. And they kept hearing rumors, and they would post up, and the British didn't come, and everybody laughed at them. Someone else would see, just to fuck with the militia, oh, the British are coming, and then they'd have to exhaust their resources to find out if the British were really coming, and wives were scared, children were scared, the men knew that they were the ones to pull the trigger. The British didn't come. This happened a few times, and it got to the point where they were demoralized, and they were still pissed off, but they were demoralized. So midnight came and went, and the British never showed up. 2/3 of the men went home. And they were yelling at each other. They're like, man, this is never going to happen. What the hell are we doing out here? This is dumb. I'm freezing my freaking ass off. You guys are idiots. I'm an idiot. I'm going home. The third that stayed there stayed in a tavern. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, they couldn't believe it. The looks on each other's faces in that tavern must have been historically epic, as they picked their heads up off of the bar to hear the drums of the British war machine in their fucking neighborhood, right down the street, coming down the street. They couldn't believe it. Everybody's hearts jumped with fear and then fell into their stomachs, because this was the moment, and they were assigned to do it. There was no one else, and they knew that 2/3 of their men were gone, and there was no way they could make it in time. They knew what they had to do. They understood that ammunition supply depot was a big-ass game changer, whether they were going to be able to make it or not against the British. They went out onto the road. It was cold. And the British Army couldn't believe it. In the dark of night, they see the fire from multiple torches heading out onto the road, parallel to them, facing them in opposition. And they couldn't believe it. Now to this day, they say that nobody knows who fired the first shot, and I think that's bullshit. I think those people there, they knew damn well. But it didn't matter, because right before they lined up, they looked at this young girl, about 14 years old, and they said, listen, we won't be here most likely when you get back, but we need you to wake up every Minuteman on the route that you can. Get them here as soon as you can, because we can't lose this ammo supply depot. You got to do everything you can. Move at God's speed. We'll do the best we can to hold them off for as long as we can. With tears in her eyes, she hauled ass on that horse, and to this day, people still can't figure out how she rode the route that she did in the time that she did. But by the time she got back in enough time to watch the last body fall. Everyone damn near was dead. If they weren't dead, they were wounded. They were no longer standing. The British thought that was it. Little did they know that when she was riding back in tow were a bunch of Minutemen. Now I want you to apply this to today. When they rolled up on that scene, they saw their brothers dead. I want you to think about the militiamen that you know today. What do you believe their reaction would be if they rolled up on a bunch of our fellow activists and a bunch of our fellow countrymen and women and a bunch of our fellow militiamen dead at the hands of anybody? What do you think their reaction is going to be? From Concord to 3 miles to the shore, the British ran, while Minutemen chased them and flanked them on both sides, both hillsides, all the way to the shore. We dropped redcoats. That's who your militia is. That's what your militia is, and it's never changed. That's what they'll always be. They have always carried that same spirit, and they're here today, and it's your choice to embrace them or listen to the exact same ruling class and the exact same mass media that has proven time and time again to never have your best interests at heart. Who are you going to believe? The mainstream media that has your country circling the drain, telling you to bastardize your own militia, that they're just a bunch of racist beer swillers? Or will you entertain for a moment that once again you've been lied to, and this is something that needs your own discernment? This is something you need to decide for yourself. These are good men and women. I know them. I know many of them. I've organized with many of them from across the nation. West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan. These are good men and women. They all have, and with them they carry the same concern for this nation. Whether they're coming to you from a Protestant background, a Republican background, none of them care. Why should it matter to you? They're all here concerned with precision focus on one thing: the preservation for us to be able to believe in whatever it is we believe in. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be a Republican, if you want to be a Democrat, first you're going to have to start to be a good American. My suggestion to you, if you wish to be a good American, investigate your local militia. If you don't have one that's worth a damn, contact our 3%. I can help you do that, and they can help you structuralize one that is worth a shit. The ladies that are helping me out, Moesha, Miss C. Gypsy, Joyce, I freaking love you guys, man. You ladies, I'm telling you, this does not happen without you. I'm going to get more into that later in the week about how it was that women, I mean, half of us getting this country had to do with women. Seriously, 50%. You know, so I want to get into that. I love y'all, and we cannot do this without you. It is impossible. You know, I hope that you women realize your strength out there and cling to women like Joyce and Moesha, Letitia, and Miss C. Gypsy. These are strong women. These are motivated women. They understand that we all stand to lose. You know, and they've got the heart to do this, and they'll fight like hell. These are not women that you ever in your motherfucking life want to cross in a negative way. They will hand you your ass, and if they're too busy to, they will call us, and we will hand you your ass. This is who we are. This is America, and this is what we are, and we're unapologetic. We will not apologize for who and what we are. We do have strong women, and we're fucking proud of them. We do have strong men, and you're goddamn right. We have an incredibly strong militia, and I'm proud to be any part of it that I am. When I go out to the FTX, and I'm going to take pictures and do my story and everything, and do a little bit of journalistic work out there, you guys, I think you guys are going to enjoy that piece. I think you guys are going to see. I'm not there to look at a story and create my own. I'm there to tell you what's encompassed in their actions. That's exactly what I plan to do. And I thank you, all of the militias, for that opportunity. I love you guys. Oh, man, cool. So we will get back into this tomorrow. Thank you again. Thank you to all the ladies. You guys don't know, man. For anybody out there, any of you misogynist pricks that don't understand my admiration for women and my Napoleon complex, feel free to ask me, because I've only lived with women my entire life, and I understand the virtue of a woman, and I understand how we've been pitted against each other. You know, they have us in competition when there was never a competition to be had. We've always been the perfect complement to each other. Do you want to see this emulated in your life? Join the militia. Watch how those women shoot. Listen to these women and how they speak. You know, they don't need me to tell you. You know, investigate these things for yourself and realize none of us come from weakness. And we're going to hand our enemies their asses. And you should be part of it. You know, if you don't want to be part of the militia because you believe some of the preconceived notions, then we really don't need you to be part anyway, because you're way too easily led. We need people that have discerned for themselves what they believe is right and wrong, and that, you know, that being a member of this is something that is right for them. So, you know, that's what we're looking for. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. It's 9 o'clock. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Cotton Chop. And we'll be back tomorrow. Militia, militia, militia. Go love something. Go love an electrified bag of watery flesh. Go get it done, and we'll see you tomorrow, guys. This has been Diametric Opposition. I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of the video of the C-SPAN coverage. And enjoy it, man. There's, what is it? It's got about 38 minutes left on it. So this was really good. And the one gentleman who was trying to disrupt things earlier a little bit there had said that all militias are racist. I don't know, sir, if you were watching this, but the representative for militia for the state of Ohio is a black man. So you may want to check that out. Watch our C-SPAN video here. Everyone, enjoy your night. Enjoy your families. Go love something. Thank you.
Regulations to create civilian inmate labor prison camps inside military bases. Those are the questions. We have questions why, under executive orders, the President of the United States sends $200 million to build Russian homes for Russian soldiers overseas.
Thank you. I'd like to just get on to Mr. Fletcher. Another question on the in an interview with the Los Angeles Times on April 21st, you said that you told the Associated Press that the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and to control the rest. Would you explain what you were trying to say?
Well, what I was trying to say is exactly what I said. There is weather control techniques. We have a complete package on that, which I did not bring, but I certainly will see to it that it is brought in for the record. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilize it as far back as the Vietnam War. You might want to touch base with Senator Pell.
I just want to repeat before I turn to
So yes, but we do have all that information.
You're saying the government has created weather tampering techniques so that the, quote, New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans.
Worldwide.
Millions of Americans, and to control the rest.
Yes, sir, and that's my belief. As bizarre as that sounds, if somebody had told me that that equipment even existed 10 years ago, I would have thought they were nuts, sir. And at this point in time, we have all the documents to prove it. And if you think that 85 tornadoes takes place in the middle of our growing area by simultaneous accident, I'm sorry. With the equipment that's already set up internationally, and as bizarre as that is, it is proven and documented. We will supply you with those documents. As bizarre as that is, I would say that weather wars, and this is quoting actually Senator Claiborne Pell himself, that they are the greatest weapon ever created in the world, and that's the Senator's own statement. So yes, I do stand on that.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Cole. Senator Feinstein?
He's not here.
Pardon me, Senator Thompson?
Mr. Johnson, whether or not one agrees with your statement, I think you gave a very thoughtful statement, thought-provoking as to what you perceive to be going on in the country and the concerns. You mentioned the problems, as you say, with our government. You talk about the tax rates being too high. You talk about government being too big, too intrusive, and all those things, many of which many of us are also concerned about and are trying to do something about it. You talked about the British, our revolution, other places around the world. But, you know, we couldn't vote King George out of office. The difference between us and other countries is that we do have a democratic society, and one in which huge numbers of people don't even bother to vote. But we have an opportunity to change just about all the things that you listed that's a problem. I take it that you think that our system is broken down, our electoral process in some way is broken down. Either it's really not free and open, or maybe we shouldn't go by democratic processes, or what's your problem with working through the process to solve these problems?
You know, there was an organization, I believe, came out back in September and said that the militia's aim was clearly the democratic process itself. And my response to that was that our aim was, our target was right on target, right around November the 8th, when a whole new Congress came in here. Fine, granted. Now, we advocate that more than everything, voting. But we seem to have a problem here during these campaigns when all of these wonderful politicians, God love them, say whatever they're going to say, and they get inside the Beltway and everything is, how do we say, politics as usual. Now, what's going on as this trend continues, and you guys got to listen to this, you're pushing people's backs against the wall out there. We got people out there hungry, like you're talking about, people out there starving, and people tired of getting terrorized by law enforcement. Well, I shouldn't say law enforcement. I will support law enforcement whenever they support the law. I'll just call them enforcement. They're getting outright economically terrorized, socially terrorized. I mean, the political correctness is getting out of hand. That is why these people are, what they're doing, what this militia is now, it's a mindset. It's the civil rights movement of the 90s. It's people sitting there with "Don't tread on me" stamped across their forehead. There's people drawing a line in their sand. That's what it is. Nobody's going to go out there and shoot things. Nobody's going to go out there and blow up things. We're not baby killers. We're baby boomers. We're not terrorists. We're taxpayers. We're not extremists. We're just extremely ticked off at the way the government is deviating away from what's going on around here. And when I say we, as this militia, as this little covert group out there, no, it's everybody. Now, just because you say we're going to form ourselves a militia, it doesn't make you the militia. What we stand for here is the Constitution. That's it.
All right, let me follow up on that a little bit.
We'll be disregarding the lights. Senator Thompson may proceed as he wishes.
Thank you. I take it then basically you think the system doesn't work, that the problems that you see are not really being addressed, that politicians promise one thing and deliver another. You're not the first one to come up with that idea, I assure you.
It's becoming a real general consensus around the country, sir.
And you basically believe that today that exists the way it always has.
What exists?
That situation exists.
No, I didn't say it always has. But today it is becoming more and more evident that it is existing.
I see. What do you see the role of the militia in addressing that problem?
Right now, the militia, I look at it as a constitutional safety net. What you have are these groups who are organizing themselves in a manner that the Constitution will be preserved, no matter what kind of action this government or any other government takes. That's the little friction point you're going to run into there.
Well, that gets into another question, I suppose. Bad laws are one thing, high taxes and that sort of thing. But when you talk about a militia, you don't organize a militia to lower taxes, I assume. You organize a militia that at least has some military capability. Is there concern that the government is forcefully and physically going to move against individuals who are trying to assert their constitutional rights?
You bet.
Is that the basis of the militia movement?
That is not the basis of the militia movement, but that is a concern right now.
Would you elaborate on that?
Sure. One of the things that was mentioned here earlier, I think Senator Specter mentioned it. He said, were the militias a threat to the federal government? And I says, gee, you walk outside of 495 and the question's the other way around. Is the government a threat to the militia? The militia is everybody. It's just a law in which people form themselves a group to self-defense and for their security. Okay? It's not to wage war, but if a war is waged, these groups plan on winning. And let me tell you something else. Speaking of this, you're saying should this be looked into? It's a mindset. I was at a gun range earlier this year, and they happened to be firing machine guns that they owned lawfully. And we have people, I'm talking law enforcement, I'm talking military, we have a lot of sympathetic people in those branches who all were down there with their firearms and with the awesome display of firepower that I saw down there, and that was just one iota of it. Okay? I say this sincerely, I don't mean to direct this at anybody here, but a lot of people see what's coming down. They see some of the executive orders that are being thrown at them, some of the statements that are being made directed toward the American public.
What form do you think is most likely for this warfare to be launched against the people?
In what form?
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned instances, obviously, where that you're very much concerned about, the Waco incident and things of that nature, but do you see something on a more organized basis or a more pervasive basis in terms of what the government might do to the citizens?
Right. It isn't just about Waco and Ruby Ridge. When you hear things about, there was a survey out in 29 Palms, California, in which military officers were asked, if necessary, would they shoot on Americans who refuse to give up their firearms. In any other country, that constitutes a serious threat. Military is not to be used with law enforcement. And there are certain inalienable rights people just aren't going to give up. This is the problem we face here. Even if you say, hey, this is a real bad idea, these guys are a bad idea, and we ought to go just stomp their heads in, you got a problem because they're going to shoot back. And I can tell when those other officers were up here, it was a serious concern. Even though, hey, we all want to preserve our constitutional rights, okay? If there's nuts out there, heck, we'll probably find them before you do and turn them over to you. But as far as the mainstream approach of this thing, and when we hear about some of the plans or ideas that they would like to see happen to us, okay, now I have seen them take place. For instance, I'm talking about Brunswick, Ohio. We had one gentleman who got his door knocked on. He said, no, go back and get a warrant. It's under the Constitution. Get a warrant, get probable cause. Okay, the result was he kicked his door in 7 times. So this person with a legally owned weapon shot him. She said it was a police officer. If a police officer kicks down my door with no warrant, no probable cause, what am I supposed to do?
Incidents like that have happened throughout the course of history. Will continue to happen.
The result. Okay.
My question is, do you perceive and are you concerned about a more organized, more pervasive effort by the government against individuals or groups or whoever, in what form it might take? Could I ask Mr. Adams that question, or maybe somebody else?
Yeah, I would like to respond to a few of these things. I don't know that I necessarily perceive that the government is planning some conspiracy, if you will, to attack the militias. I do have a question and would like a response. I know you may not be able to respond to me today. This goes back to March 25th of this year, and I know that some of you senators are aware at least of the allegations, and that's what I'd like to know, if they were allegations or if they were true, because this is the answer to your question. There was a proposed or an allegation that the Attorney General, Janet Reno, was going to attack several militia leaders in this country on March 25th. There were several senators that wrote to the Attorney General concerning this and asked her not to do this. My question is, I don't know if it was going to take place or not. If it was going to
do what, Mr. Adams?
To attack several militia leaders.
You mean arrest?
Attack was the word. Attack, yes. And I'm not saying that this was going to take place. I'm saying that I've seen the letters that the senators have written to her. I've seen copies of them. They've been on television.
Do you have those copies with you?
I do not know.
Would you provide them to us?
I will provide where you can get them. I do not personally have them, but I will do that. They do have them.
Those, and we will.
Do you have them with you?
No, sir, we don't.
So the question is, I don't know if that was real or whether it was rumor or what, but I will say that it was a tremendous concern to a lot of people across the country.
That they were going to be attacked.
That they were going to be attacked, right. Now, I personally could not believe that it could be possible in this country, because we were violating no laws. As I mentioned earlier, we operate within the law, and we believe in that. So if we were going to be attacked, it was certainly something very, very ominous to take place from our government. But it was widespread enough that some Congress representatives did inquire of Ms. Reno about this, and
she did not respond.
She did not respond. We would like a response. If it was real, then of course we would really like to know why such a thing was taking place. If it wasn't real, then just respond to it, and that's the answer. And that's one of the problems I think that we have today, is there's a lot of questions with few answers. And I think if we could expose something, you've heard a lot of allegations from people here today. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. If they're real, then let's expose them. If they're not, then let's expose them. And that's why I think this is a healthy forum that we have here today, because we have started some communication.
Well, Mr. Adams, I know of no such proposal by the Attorney General to attack anyone. It sounds far-fetched to me.
And
if you have letters from senators, I'd like to see them.
Yeah, and I do agree with you that it sounds far-fetched, but the letters do exist.
Well, let's see them. Let us turn now to Senator Feinstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my first occasion to be able to talk with militia members. So I'm a newcomer, and I've listened very carefully to what has been said here today. And what I gather from it is that, as you put it, Mr. Johnson, people are ticked off, irritated, annoyed, upset, whatever you may say, about a variety of things having to do with, quote, government, whether it's law enforcement or decision makers or anything else. What I'd like to have each one of you answer is, assuming this is correct, do you believe there are circumstances in which you can take the law into your own hands? Mr. Tokman, let's go down.
I'm sorry, it's Truckman.
Excuse me, Mr. Truckman.
Like a vehicle. No, ma'am, I don't. Nobody should be an island unto himself, nor a law unto himself.
So you believe there are no circumstances where individuals should take the law into their own hands?
There is one. When someone comes to destroy my family, I won't have a choice. If that were ever to happen, I would defend to the last drop of blood.
Okay.
And I would expect any other American to do the same thing. And I'm told that you have a concealed weapons permit, so I guess you probably feel the same way we do.
Well, let me put that aside. I do not have a concealed weapon permit.
Well, you recently had one.
No, I had one in the 1970s. I have not had one since then, after a terrorist incident that took place involving myself. That was the only time I had a concealed weapon permit, so I'm happy to set that one straight.
Well, I apologize. I'll have to go back to my California informers.
I think you will. Let me move on. Mr. Fletcher, do you believe there are any circumstances under which you or your followers can take the law into their own hands?
Commonly, absolutely not, and we do not at any time espouse that in any way, shape, or form. However, we are, and again, it's totally, as in the militia Montana, we're predominantly educational in nature, and by that I mean that's what we do mostly. You will not find us out in our camos and that type of thing very regularly at all. No, normally, and at no time have we ever espoused any such action. You know, we are, however, a defensive kind of a concept, if you will, and I suppose there could be some bizarre situation like the unconstitutional suspension of the Constitution that might therefore appear that people are going to take things.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
There is no time for any people to go against the laws of their government and to take those laws into their own hands. That is totally unacceptable in any society, and we certainly and fully agree with that. One of the questions that was brought up about this particular meeting here today was, you know, how many people are involved with the militia? And I think some earlier testimony that was kind of hard to put a finger on. I can personally tell you that from my office alone, we have helped establish over 1,000 lawful militia units throughout the country in all 50 states. And I know that all of these people that I've talked to and that I talk to throughout the nation agree with the statements I'm making right now, that we must be law-abiding. The only exception to that, which I believe has already been stated, is for self-preservation and self-defense of our persons and family if an unlawful act were being perpetrated against us.
All right, Mr. Johnson?
I'd say there only be two occasions first one is if, once again, if you come into somebody's house, shoot.
Without a warrant and
Yeah.
without reasonable cause. Is
Yeah,
that-
without a warrant, without a reasonable cause. And it would be awfully nice if they came in the house with the warrant. It would be nice if they would knock politely. But other than that, I don't see a reason for using any kind of force to justify your actions. And of course, once again, you suspend the Constitution. Then for that reason, I don't have to recognize anybody in federal law enforcement. If we're invaded for some reason and our government's overthrown by a foreign power, we're going to have to take the law into our own hands to save it.
Mr. Olson?
I would agree completely with what J.J. Johnson has said, that there is no other reason to take law into one's own hands unless it's for the preservation of himself or the property, his family. What we have done, and this is how I deal with the law, and I recognize the law and submit to the law, we have empowered and encouraged our sheriffs. We provide the evidence. This book that I would like to present to this Senate subcommittee is about 6 pages, 6 pounds of evidence that will conclusively show this committee the corruption in government. And I would like the committee to have this book. Now you who represent this government, you who have formed this Senate body, and you who are concerned about the laws, now this is the way that I deal with it. Here's the evidence. You carry out your responsibility for the law.
Okay, may I go on and ask another question?
Yes,
And
you
let
may.
me-
To take whatever time you need, Senator Feinstein.
Oh, thank you very
Turn the lights
much.
on.
Mr. Olson, you're wearing a uniform, and that uniform says you are a commander. What is it that you command?
Ours is an organization of command communication. Serving in the military, we understand what is called command control communication, because there is a control that must be exercised in the organized military. We in the militia have command communication in that we convey information down to the lowest level so that reasonable, intelligent human beings can make an informed decision.
Do you command people?
No, I am a commander only in what is called a unity of command, so that a person reports to another person all the way up and down the chain. That's called a simple line of communication or echelon of communication. There is no command
And what
control.
do these people communicate about?
Communicate information. The information now available to the American public is extraordinary. Is extraordinary in that we are available now through alternative sources of news to convey truth to the American people. I believe that what you're seeing in America in the last 3 or 4 years is a phenomena of informed Americans now waking up. A new conscience is building in America.
I don't mean to stop you, but I've got so many questions
Yes.
I want to ask you about
I'll try to
what
be
it is,
Forgive me, I am
just
a preacher.
practically what it is you do. Do the people in your organization stockpile weapons?
I wouldn't say stockpiling. No one should have more than they should need.
How many weapons does an individual need?
It depends upon the threat that they perceive.
So is it fair to say that there could be unlimited numbers of weapons?
Possibly. The old adage in the military is that accuracy is everything.
And what do you do with these weapons?
Prepare ourselves to defend ourselves, ma'am. We are not offensive. We are defensive, purely defensive.
So everybody is trained in how to use these weapons?
No, ma'am. In the community that we call the militia, there are 2 parts of the militia. That which we call the patriot body, those people that are more concerned about information, seminars, videotapes, information. And then there is the militia who may be involved in the weekend maneuvers. That is what you see in the press often. What you don't see in this vast grouping of Americans concerned about the Constitution are the religious right, for example. They're very much concerned. The patriot community, the information community, they're very much concerned. But what you do see is that small portion of people called the militia who exercise on the weekends.
And under what circumstances would this command operation that you have sanction the use of these weapons?
Excellent question, ma'am. We will defer to the lawful historic authority, which is the county sheriff. He indeed is the commander of the local militia. And when a situation erupts in which we would be deputized...
Does he participate with you?
No, he cannot, because of course of his political nature. He cannot always, but he is normally in support of, knowing the historic role of our sheriffs. In the event that the county were to be endangered, he could deputize a ready posse, and he could form the militia to defend the people. That's what the historic militia is all about.
And what would this county be afraid of?
The county could be afraid of, for example, there are 53 federal agencies right now that employ deadly force. They carry weapons and they can make arrests using deadly force.
But supposing they had warrants?
That may not necessarily be what the county would be with best interest of the people in the county. For example, our county sheriff does not know when federal officials come into the county to search, seize, or arrest until he sees it on the nightly news. We have a bill before our House, or we're trying to seek support for it. Perhaps you've heard of it, the No More Wacos bill, or the sheriff empowerment legislation, which would require federal agencies to get permission from the local county sheriffs before they could come into the county. In other words, coordinate their activities with the county sheriff. There are, of course, some exceptions to that rule, which would involve necessarily the investigation of the sheriff himself, for example.
I believe my time is up, Mr. Chairman. I'll wait for the next round.
Senator Feinstein, I don't think we're going to have another round because the vote starts in just a few minutes. If you want to
Could I
take
ask
a
one
few
other
more minutes.
question?
Yes.
Do you believe there are any circumstances in which an individual has a right to blow up a building? And let's start with you, Mr. Truckman.
Absolutely not, Mrs. Feinstein. Absolutely not. We are plain and simple a neighborhood watch, watching out for problems. When we encounter what we perceive as threats to a peaceful society, we do something about it.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're plain and simple, why do I read constantly these violent quotes, this hatred for other people, this anti-Semitic, anti-black, driving people to have this intense fear and antagonism?
Would you like my black friend to answer that for you? I'm sick and tired of these questions constantly.
I asked you why.
We have gone over it and over it and over it, and if you want to blame somebody about it, take a look at the press. We're telling them one thing, they're telling you something else. I already addressed it.
So you're saying you don't say these things?
No, ma'am, I do not say that.
Okay.
We're all in this together.
That's all I wanted to know. So all those comments are wrong.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Feinstein, what we're saying is we are all in this together. America better put away its differences or we'll cease to have a country. We shouldn't be your side and my side. We should all be for the same, the betterment of our country and for our fellow countrymen. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Fletcher?
Well, it's pretty much the
circumstances on which...
The same answer. No, absolutely not. And I don't mean that your question's ludicrous, but that it is a little bit, and I don't mean that as an insult. I don't think anybody could perceive that point in time where that would make sense, particularly if we're talking the housing of infants and that type of thing. And the press, which Mr. Trockman refers to, shows Mr. Trockman's face and one of the other Patriot leaders' face and the blown-up babies, and then just leaves it hang there. And that's, unfortunately, we can't sue for that. And if we could, it would look like the national debt in terms of a legal action. And as far as the racial thing is concerned, that's garbage. Those folks in the extreme radical fringes of the Patriot movement, which is a cross-section of Americana, same as the police forces, 10% of every police force is either racially motivated, racist persons. They're doing drugs, doing prostitution, or stealing on the side. And it's probably the same in the militia movement because it's a cross-section of Americana. We stand down from any hate kind of rhetoric whatsoever, period. And my wife of 25 years was Jewish and Italian. My business partners for 4 or 5 different years were blacks. And my granddaughter is half American Indian. So if I'm racist, I am doing a lousy job of it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Adams?
We certainly in no way would ever condone, as I said earlier, any type of violence, and of course that would include a bombing. I would ask each of you that as you watch the media report upon us, and you've probably seen many of our faces many times, listen for those words of racism from our mouth. You have not heard it. You will not hear it. And if we hear of anyone in our organization speaking of hate or speaking of racism, they will be asked to leave and never return because we do not condone it. The press will go out and find some fringe element out there that may say something, but Trust me and believe me, it is not part of our mainstream organization. And as I said earlier, there are going to be some people that will try to ride our coattails because we are before the press. My gosh, we're before you today. And that's a lot of public knowledge. And they're going to try to grab some of that, and we will try to eliminate it wherever we can. But you pay very close attention to what the media has to say, and certainly as politicians, you've been soundbited. You know exactly what we're talking about. But you watch what we say out of our own mouth, and that's what's true.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, first it's a question about blowing up a building.
Are there any circumstances under which an individual is justified to blow up any building?
After you've evacuated it and you wanted to cover up the evidence. Other than that, let me talk about the racist aspect now. It's getting old. I'm getting real tired of being called a Klan member. I'm getting tired of being called a member of the Aryan Nations group. I spoke 2 weeks ago down at the Lincoln Memorial along with 2 other black people and the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms, and I believe there was somebody else Jewish who helped organize it, and the reports came out that a racist, anti-Semitic militia group held a rally on the Lincoln Memorial. Are these people blind, or is there an agenda afoot here? Okay? There are more black people showing up every day. A lot of the things that these people sit around in these meetings, these so-called right-wing wackos, and talk about, happen daily in black communities. And black communities know this. The first people concerned seriously about neighborhood house-to-house searches and seizures were over in Chicago. They were black. Good grief, almost half the people in Waco who got killed were black. This movement isn't about guns and skin color. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. Amen. The same kind of legislation we're seeing coming down on everybody now came down on blacks just after the Civil War. That's why they're getting involved in this thing. And it's going to come eventually to somebody, you know, as you keep ignoring us and saying, well, these guys are just a bunch of angry white men. Well,
pardon me for interrupting, but they have started the vote now, so we're going to have to conclude in just a few minutes.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Olson, would you respond to that?
The answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. Our record stands for itself. The FBI will give you all the evidence concerning the Michigan Militia Corps on that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, the vote has started, so we're going to have to conclude very shortly. There have been a lot of very serious charges made, and we would like a specification to the extent that you gentlemen would like to make them. I would ask you, Mr. Fletcher, when you talk about other explosions in the federal building and another John Doe, to give us the specifics. You've given us some materials. We will take a look at them. Mr. Olson, you have made a charge that what Senator Cole pointed up about a picture of Adolf Hitler, all in favor of gun control, raise your right hand, being Jewish copyrighted.
That is from the Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Gun Ownership out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that is a copyrighted document.
And what's your authority that it's Jewish?
A letter that came out in JPFO's newsletter about a month ago. And I'll be glad to give you a copy.
From whom?
From the director of JPFO.
Would you please submit a copy?
We want to have it on your desk within the week, sir.
I'd be glad to get into the issue you raised about the single bullet theory. If you want to write to me, I will respond to you in detail. I'm sorry we don't have the time with the vote starting. Mr. Adams, you have made a comment about the organization of militias in all 50 states, and I would ask this of you and of all the other members present, if you would provide this committee in writing all the information you have about where the militias are, how many there are in each state, where their names are, what their membership is, what their purposes are, if there is anything in writing about them, if there is to give us some specification to the extent you can as to what weapons they have. And I'm not making any suggestion if there are any violations of law, but we'd like to know as much specifically as we can about this question. This hearing I think has been illuminating.
Perhaps you'll allow Ken Adams to give you a response to that question if he will provide you with that in-depth information.
I certainly would be appreciative if Mr. Ken Adams would do that. My own view, as I suggested in a brief exchange with Mr. Olson, is that let it all come out, let it all hang out.
Could I respond to your question, sir? To your request, it'll be brief.
If you can briefly, the votes have started.
You have asked for lists of people and lists of memberships and things of this information. I cannot provide that.
No, I haven't asked for a list of membership or lists of people. Okay. I'm not asking for that. Okay. I'm asking for total numbers. This committee would like to make an assessment.
I will do the best
as to what the strength of the militia's strengths are.
I will provide everything that I possibly can to you that would not violate personal privacy.
We're not asking you for any individual names that you don't want to provide. We're not asking you for violations of any personal privacy.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ms. Trockman, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes, sir. I can add that we will provide you with the numbers of the people that we work with in leadership across the country, concerned citizens, and it will stagger your imagination, I guarantee you. America is upset, and we are a valve to help control them till we can find a way to solve this. Please be thankful that we are here. We love our country. We love our form of government. There is no better on earth. We're here to support the righteous government.
I would like an answer from each of you, too, in writing, if you'd provide it. As a follow-up to Mr. Johnson said, that there's only time between now and armed conflict. You have all said that you respect the democratic process and the ballot box as a way of changing our institutions. And the only limitations when asked about violence was essentially a statement about self-defense. To the extent that you know of any others who disagree and do plan violence, to the extent you would provide that to this committee, we would be interested to know that. This is the first hearing that we have on this subject, and we will be pursuing the matter further. You have something more you want to say, Mr. Trockman?
Sir, we are already doing that with federal agencies.
That's correct, yes. We have provided...
Well, all right. Provide them to federal agencies is fine. If you provide them to this subcommittee, we are interested to know, too, because we're trying to make an assessment of the extent of the militias, how many people, not necessarily specific identity, what their firepower is, what their purposes are, and whether they pose any threat, and whether there's any justification for further legislation on the subject, either at the state, local, or at the federal level. But this is the first hearing. This is the fourth hearing which this subcommittee has held on problems of terrorism generally.
Can I make one real brief statement? Given the very brief.
Make it real.
Okay. I can assure you, sir, and to all members of Congress and to all the people of this nation, that the militia does not constitute any threat to this nation.
Well, we have that assurance, Mr. Adams, but you'll forgive us if we don't want to accept it at face value. We want to look further.
Mr. Inspector, if please, I wonder if we may be able to have an assurance that we would have an open door to get to you folks relative to the same fear that we have relative to a government that maybe the people are no longer trusting.
You have an open door to this subcommittee. Any additional information you wish to provide to us, we would be glad to have.
Thank you, sir.
Let me make one brief comment about a press advisory which I have just seen from Congressman Schumer commenting about these hearings. There will be follow-up, and we'd be glad to have any suggestions that Mr. Schumer, Congressman Schumer, might have. And note that we had testimony from Rabbi Heyer, the dean and founder of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, earlier in our hearings on terrorism, and a concluding statement that at least my own view is that a public airing of grievances that the citizens have is a very useful and very healthy thing. There is in the Constitution, beyond the more frequently quoted freedom of speech, religion, and press, the right of the citizenry to petition the Congress. And we are interested in what you have to say. Much of it you've already heard is there's disagreement with the panel, and I would express that same disagreement. And my own view is whatever ideas you have, let's get them out in the open. And I believe that, if I may say just one or two words in a conclusory fashion, that much of what has been said here today will fall of its own weight. But let's hear about it. And I think if we hear you out, we may decrease your membership. But it's a free society. We all have a right to speak, and let the American people draw their conclusions. And my own sense is that it is healthy, and America will applaud letting you speak your piece, no matter how much we disagree with you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Senate passed the anti-terrorism bill last week, 91-8. The House will take up the anti-terrorism bill in July.